What is up, my YouTube family? Welcome back to my channel. Unless this is your first time here, then it's just welcome to my channel. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button because you will not be disappointed unless you just get bad taste. And if that's the case, then girl, that's fine. The world needs balance, okay? Who are me to judge? Today's video I'm super excited about because I'm doing the true Arne Johnson case, which was the case that inspired The Conjuring 3, which I watched after the fact, and it kind of ruined it for me because I'm the type of person, I don't like to be told, or I don't like to know what's going to happen before I watch a movie. And watching this movie after I had done all of the research, I felt like I just knew everything that was about to happen. And then anytime something different happened than what was factual, I was just wondering why they changed that, or I was just noticing like, oh, that's different, or I was trying to rationalize why they might change it. Like, it was just a whole thing. I couldn't just enjoy the movie. Then it was some things that they changed that I just didn't like that they changed. What we're gonna do here today is just, I'm gonna tell you the story how it really happened, as I normally would, and then I think in the end I'll do like the comparison. So without further ado, let's just get into it. Hopefully Blue does not make a lot of noise in the background because for whatever reason, he is on one this morning. First of all, he does not get up this early. When I get up, I usually walk him, feed him, he goes back to bed. Walk him, try to feed him. Next thing I know, he is walking behind me, putting raw chicken behind my plant. And I'm just like, why? He raw feeds, and I guess he's not ready to eat. But instead of him refusing the meal, he just tried to plant his little raw food all over my home. You can't do that, sir. You're getting salmonella all on my damn plants. And it's like we both realize that the food just can't sit in your bowl if you're not ready to eat. But instead of him just allowing me to place it back in the refrigerator, he wants to go hide it. Like, I'm going to take his food and fry it later. I don't want your chicken. So I just had to box him real quick and put his food in the fridge. And now he's laying on the floor pouting, which is fine because that's quiet and it's not stressing me out. And it's not getting salmonella all on my plants. He down there with a whole attitude. He's so cute. I'm gonna let you know right now, there were not a whole lot of photos available of the actual people. Y'all got a whole movie to serve as a visual representation. I don't want to hear it. So sorry about it. Arne Johnson was born on January 21st, 1962, making him an Aquarius. Now, in this particular case, I don't think the backstory is all that relevant. And let's be real here, even if it were, there's literally no information about his background. The story takes place in 1981 in Brookfield, Connecticut, and Arne is 19 years old, and at the time he is dating another teen from his hometown named Deborah Glatzel. Now, in the summer of 1980, the Glatzel family, they are in the process of moving into a new home. This was a pretty old home, and it needed a lot of cleaning up. And there were things that were left behind from the previous owners. So the Glatzel family, they're like, you know what? We're going to get together as a family, which consists of two parents, Deborah, who is the oldest, and then two young sons. They decide that they are going to serve as the cleanup crew for this house. So they get together as a family to go to the home, clean up, kind of throw out all of this old stuff, dust, all of the things. In the midst of doing so, their son, the youngest son, David, who was 11 at the time, all of a sudden, he becomes hysterical. He is screaming, he is crying, and they find him in one of the old bedrooms. The child is so shaken up that he can barely speak. But when he does speak, he tells them that he had seen this tall, angry-looking man with all black eyes, sharp teeth, a really thin face, and many characteristics of the devil himself. Like, apparently sis had some hooves and some more. He says that the man warned him that they should not move into the home or he would hurt them, and then pushed him into the waterbed, which was an old bed that was already there. I guess that was just like a little preview of what was to come. Like, you move in here, girl, it's a lot more where that came from. Now, the parents, they don't take him seriously. They're like, you just don't want to clean up this house. Like, if you didn't want to come here and clean up, just say that. But you're still going to do it. And so they're like, get back to work. They brush this off, they don't take it seriously, and they move in 12 days later. This would only be the first of many times that David will claim to have seen this entity. As soon as they move in, David begins having these night terrors where he will wake up hysterically crying. He had bruises, he would have scratches on his arms and legs and other strange markings, and he will claim to have again seen this man in his dreams. Initially, the parents, they don't really take it as serious. They feel like the scratches could have easily come from, him scratching himself in his sleep while he was having the nightmare, if he was acting it out, trying to fight somebody off, was messing around fighting himself. Nightmares, they aren't really typical of David, but The parents just think that it's just nightmares. Like, what else can I do besides leave the light on for you? Like, I really don't know what else to do at this point. But then these experiences began to happen in the daytime, where he would go into like this dream-like trance and appear to be acting out the dreams. At this point, they become a little concerned, but they still think it's like a dream thing until he himself begins to act a little differently, like his own characteristics change. Jai started off as a low growl or hiss here at the dinner table every now and then, and they would just be looking at him like, excuse me? And then from there, he would begin speaking in this like low growl, claiming that his name was something different than David. They also said that at times he would speak in Latin, and just wasn't taught no Latin at all. He would hallucinate, he would recite scriptures, and as the weeks progressed, things just get even more strange. He would go into these little trance-like states. Then when he snapped out of it, he didn't remember anything. The parents, they were becoming very weirded out by all of this, as any of us I think would be. So they reach out to the Catholic Church and they're like, we think our son needs an exorcist. The thing with the Catholic Church at this time, they were like, nah, probably not. Like, they didn't really take it seriously. Things do not get better in their household. Things continue to get worse and more weird. David is suffering a lot of bodily injuries, and they're very concerned at this point. Like, they just want to get their baby help. They had dealt with this for months, almost a year before they finally get in contact with Ed and Lorraine Warren, who we know are like these demonologists and paranormal experts. So they were like, you know what? Maybe they can help our kid. Like, let's call them over. Because, you know, Young and Fix My Life was not a thing yet. They lived in Connecticut as well, and so they were not that far away. And they were known for dealing with the demons and all of the dark things. And so they agreed to come out and just check out the scene and see if he truly was probably possessed or not. They spent a couple days at the house. They actually get the opportunity to see what the family is talking about, and they're like, yes, something is going on here. You know, allegedly, I don't know much about demons, but they say if you demand to know their name, they're supposed to tell you their name, right? But when they do this, they get a total of 43 names are attached to this child. And they're like, oh boy, shit is a lot worse than what y'all thought. Like, y'all have no idea what you're dealing with. Even though there are 43, only one of them visually presents itself to the boy, which is the image of the man with the, you know, dark eyes and all of that. He's the only one that David has actually seen. The other ones, they just get behind the wheel and drive the boat from time to time. So during their stay, the Warrens also claim to have witnessed the child levitate, be choked by like these hands that you couldn't see. They could only see like him grabbing at his neck and then like his neck being squoze. Is squoze the word? I don't know, but you know what I mean, girl. They witnessed him be scratched by like nails that they couldn't see. It was just a lot of stuff that convinced them that he was indeed possessed. Now, because of their work, they had a little bit more pull with like the Catholic Church and a couple priests. So they do get permission from the Catholic Church, and they have several priests come out. Now, by this time, Debbie, his sister, just was stressed about all of the things that was going on. And so she had actually asked her boyfriend, Arne, to move into the house. So he was temporarily staying with them until, you know, they saved up enough money to move out on their own. And he too, over time, had witnessed all of these things that had transpired with David. He was really frustrated because he felt like it was unfair for them to target such a small child. So, of course, he is in attendance when they carry out the exorcism. It's actually a total of 3 that they do over time. But in the third one, he is like, you know what, at this point, I would rather it be me. If you're going to possess and harass somebody, I'll sacrifice myself. Take over my body. He offers himself up. Ed is like, relax. Do not ever address or speak directly to these demons. Like, that's a no-no. And you damn sure don't taunt them. They don't take too kindly to things like that. However, Arne, he really didn't care. He really felt like he would rather it be him than little David. Or maybe he was just trying to impress his bae. I don't know. But whatever the case, he offers himself up to the demon. After this third exorcism, things calmed down for the Gladsels. David is still having nightmares, but they're not nearly as bad or as frequent as they once were. The lucid nightmares, the hallucinations, they had all subsided. But of course, he was kind of changed after this. He really, you go through something like that. I'm sure it was really traumatic for him as a child. So he was kind of withdrawn and just a little different. But for the most part, he had peace. Not long after this, and with everything seeming to be okay, Debbie and Arne, they decide that it's time for them to move out on their own because they've saved up enough money and they are ready for their own space. Not long after they move into this place, Debbie is noticing a lot of the same things happening to Arne that were happening to her brother David in the beginning of his little demonic takeover. First, it began with the nightmares that he would wake up out of, hysterical or like really shaken. He too had claimed to see this demon in his dreams. He would snap out into these little trances where he was just staring into space and it was like nothing was going on, girl. The hamster was just dead in the wheel. And so she was like, oh hell, here we go. Like, here we go again. Once he snaps out of it, he doesn't remember a thing, and he goes back to being completely normal as if nothing had ever happened. He had started growling and all of the things, girl. I said, if my man starts to growl, I gotta go. See, growling can be cute sometimes, but if you want to growl at me like you want to, attack, I gotta get out of there. He also tells Debbie that whatever this presence was, whoever this man was with the blacked out eyes, he was telling him to return to the Glatzel house to a well that was there on the property, this old well. And the Warrens were like, do not do that. Like, don't do anything he's telling you to do, girl. Don't listen to him. When he calls, hang up the line. But instead of listening to them, he goes out there to the well anyway. Apparently, this was the demonic spirit, the main one. This was where he lived, child. This was his house. It was his dwelling grounds. When Arne goes out there to check it out, he sees him like lucid in the flesh, or whatever a demon is in, because maybe they're not in the flesh. Two lock eyes, and they gaze at each other. And this is the last time that he actually sees him. But his condition after this incident, it only worsens. Like, it literally just snowballs. Meanwhile, Debbie is right there. He is her man, and she gonna sit beside him. And granted, it's a lot to deal with. She is trying her best to just support him. Debbie loved him, and she felt like he was only in this predicament because he had stepped in and tried to save her brother anyway. So she definitely committed to also getting him help. Like, she just wasn't gonna dash out and leave her man, like some of you girls. But I ain't judging because y'all know I'll leave mine. On February 16th, 1981, Arne calls in to his job. He calls out sick. He decides instead of going to his job, he is going to go to Debbie's job and hang out with her and spend the day there, which he had done often. Like, this was not something that was out of the norm for them. Debbie works at a kennel, so I'm sure that was quite fun. He also takes his two sisters, 15-year-old Wanda, 13-year-old Janice, and Debbie's 9-year-old cousin Mary. Because, it's a dog kennel, and kids like dogs and puppies and things. It made sense. They meet up at Debbie's job. They're helping her out with the puppies, and it's a good time. The kennel is managed by the owner's brother, 40-year-old Alan Bono, who is also Arne and Debbie's landlord. Alan is an Australian man who is new to Connecticut. And I know I said I wasn't going to hop between like the real story and the movie, but what I found odd was the fact that they made him American. He didn't have an Australian accent at all, which he was actually Australian. However, they have him make a comment about attending a show in Sydney. Like, oh, I saw these guys perform in Sydney. And I'm just like, well, why didn't y'all just make him Australian like he really is, girl? You just gonna randomly place him in Sydney? I know people travel, but still. He welcomes the extra company. He doesn't mind the kids at all. He's really, really laid back, cool guy. Not only does he welcome the extra company in the presence of the kids, he buys them all lunch. Now, Alan, he decided he was gonna have a little extra fun with his lunch. He starts to drink. He's also encouraging Arne to do so as well. Arne drinks a little bit with him, but Alan allegedly is like really getting wasted. Like, he is 2-3 sheets to the wind, 1 sheet to the wind, gone. Now, although this may sound like an odd occurrence or an isolated event, it definitely was not. Like I said before, Arne would oftentimes skip work to hang out there with them. He'd also hung out with Alan away from the kennel, just, having a good time and relaxing, chilling, hanging out, So they were really familiar with him, but this particular day, they felt like he was doing a bit much. Debbie becomes uncomfortable and she is ready to leave. Like, Arne, let's just get the kids and go. Arne, of course, agrees, and so he, Debbie, and the 3 young girls, they head outside to leave. But Alan follows behind them, and not only that, he grabs the wrist of Debbie's 9-year-old cousin, Mary. He is refusing to let her wrist go. She is begging for him to do it. He is, of course, scaring her, being as though she's a young child. Arne also tells him, like, relax, let her go. Then all of a sudden, he goes into one of his demonic trance, and Debbie's like, oh damn, not now. He approaches Alan. He is all foaming at the mouth and carrying on, just really scaring everybody there, because at this point they're all looking at him like, what's going on? It was like Michael Jackson Thriller, I think, you know, when he started turning into the werewolf. That's how I imagined it, at least. Alan is drunk. He does not want to be challenged. And so, of course, he is, you know, challenging Arne back physically. The 2 of them look like they're about to fight. So Debbie gets in between them. She tries to physically separate the 2 men, but she said she could not move Arne. It was as if he was made of stone. Like, he was not budging whatsoever. Since you probably was dealing with 43 people, girl, you can't deal with 43 men's strength at once. 44 if you're gonna count Arnie's. Child, you was up against Arne, Patricia, all of the girls. Like, everybody was in there. Hedwig girl, the Beast, Kevin. She tries to convince Arne to leave, but at this point she's realizing it's no rationalizing with this man. Like, he is not him. He is somebody else. But before she could think of her next move, Arne pulls out a pocket knife and begins jabbing Alan repeatedly. The girls are screaming. She is screaming for him to stop. He is still in this like spaced out trance. Then all of a sudden he stops, drops the knife there, and then turns toward the woods, staring straight ahead like blankly. Hamster dead in the wheel. Walks toward the woods, and then he is just gone, child. Debbie takes the children away because they're, of course, traumatized. They do call an ambulance for Alan to attempt to get him some help, but unfortunately, he does succumb to his injuries shortly after arriving at the hospital. She also called Ed and Lorraine, who then called the police. Police go out, they scour the area looking for Arne, and about an hour later, he is seen aimlessly walking down the road. He is covered in blood, and he claims to not remember anything. Now, to police, this was simple and unusual, and they were like, you know what? 2 men got into an argument in the presence of the ladies. Neither one of them wanted to back down, and then Arne pulled out his weapon and did what he did. However, the Warrens step in, and they're like, it's not that simple. That is not what happened at all. But of course, the police ain't trying to hear that. They press charges and send Arne right down to the jailhouse to await his trial. Because the Warrens were so persistent and convincing authorities that this was not what they thought it was, that the Glatzel house was haunted, and that all they needed to do was go out and investigate. They agreed to do so. They're like, okay, we'll go out there and investigate the Glatzel house, and they claimed to, but I think they just, just went out there, poked around with a couple of sticks just to satisfy or entertain them, make them feel like, yeah, okay, we looked into it. After their investigation of the paranormal presence in the Glatzel home, they are like, you know what? I didn't see anything. Like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm not convinced. So we're going to stick with this whole notion that the 2 got into an argument and things escalated and he got a little violent. And that's just what it is. Arne gets a defense attorney, and the Warrens go to his lawyer and they're like, look, he was possessed by a demonic spirit that made him do this. This was not him. The lawyer was already aware of 2 cases over in the UK where not guilty by reason of demonic possession was used in a defense. Not successfully, but they still tried it. Now, you know how these lawyers can get sometimes. So I don't know if she truly did believe that this was the case, or if she knew it would bring her some notoriety and publicity. Whatever the case, she is all for going to court with that defense strategy. Now, I know in the movie they said sis went down with it and she had to go to the house and see Annabelle and all of the things, but that was not true. It wasn't. So that's their game plan. They plan to go to court and say sis was possessed, that this was not his fault, and they're feeling really confident going in. They have the priests there that are willing to, testified that they had seen all of these things occur, and they're feeling really confident until they get to court and present their plea. And the judge is like, girl, no. The judge, he refused to allow them to enter that as their plea. And his reason is that this is not something that can be proven in court beyond faith. This is not something that can scientifically, physically be proven one way or the other, and so it is not allowed. The judge didn't care what the priest had to say or anybody. He was not allowing it in his court. And then he also brought up a point that I feel like is very valid. If I allow this and he gets off, do you know how many people gonna show up at my doorstep talking about, I just did this because I was possessed by a demonic spirit? Like, no, this is gonna open up the floodgates for people to come in here and use demonic spirits as a scapegoat for their actions. We already got all of these people showing up here talking about they're insane. We can't have this as well. Like, no. I guess that's why they omitted his reaction in the movie, because it was rejected. Not only does he reject it as a plea, the judge prevents them from using it as a part of their defense at all. He sends them back to the drawing board and tells them, look, come up with something else. And that something else was self-defense. They decided to put in not guilty by reason of self-defense. Before the trial even begins, the judge makes it very clear that absolutely no one is to get on this stand and speak anything about demonic presences and possessions and any kind of demonic state he was in. Like, it was to be completely, when I say completely, omitted from their defense. He didn't want to hear none of it. No priests up here talking about an exorcism. None of the stuff that happened with David was allowed to be said in front of the jury. So they never hear any kind of testimony in reference to that. They were in no way, shape, or form allowed to use demonic possession as a viable explanation for his actions. Now, granted, any kind of talk about this is forbidden. It was too late. The Devil Made Me Do It was the title everywhere. What Arne had done and the fact that he was pretty much blaming it on the devil, girl. The jury, they of course caught wind of this. Like, it was no way that they were not going to hear something so sensational in the news. They go in their little room, child, and they deliberate for a total of 15 hours over the course of 3 days. And when they come out, they decide that he is guilty of manslaughter. Arne is sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison. Now, since he had been arrested, since that old faithful day, Arne had not shown any more symptoms or signs of being possessed. And when questioned about this, because a lot of people were really skeptical, they're like, okay, if that was the case, sis hasn't done any of the things, girl. What's going on? Like, where the demons at? Where the demons at right now? The Warren said that that is not fair to say, because possession is not something that you deal with 24 hours a day, and it can also decide to just leave you forever at its own will without, being exorcised out. Child, if it was a demon, I personally just believe they weren't trying to go to jail with sis. Like, they were like, you know what? We ain't doing that. We are not going to be locked up. And so they might have just evacuated the premises for that reason alone. They had an old Brittney spirit on them. You going to jail? Oh, I'm out of here. In prison, Arne just pretty much puts his head down and does as he is asked and told. He was considered a model prisoner. His relationship with Deborah, it continued. She definitely supported him throughout the whole ordeal, the trial, him being locked away, everything. 3 years into his sentence, they actually get married. They have them a nice little prison ceremony and officiate their love. In January of 1986, after serving 5 years of his sentence, Arne is released on good behavior. Of course, Debbie is waiting for him on the outside, and the two of them remain together and they live happily ever after. For the most part, she did pass away before the movie premiered, so that's unfortunate. The Warrens went on discussing the details of the case and really rode the wave of the media frenzy. They were featured on several TV shows, and in 2007, way down the line, because of course this had happened in the early 80s, Carl Glatzel, who is the brother, of course, of David and Debbie Glatzel, he was not featured in the film at all, and this is probably why. In 2007, he filed a lawsuit against the Warrens, claiming that David was never possessed Instead, he was mentally ill, and that the Warrens stepped in, manipulated his family, and exploited them, and said that it was all a hoax and that none of it was true. Like, they pretty much just took advantage of a suffering family, and that it was really insulting and unfair that they were still out here making money off of this story, and how he feels they victimized his family or used his family name. Carl describes the period of his childhood surrounding these incidents as a traumatic living hell. He says that the Warrens were really only in it for the money and the notoriety, and that it was just sick and twisted of them to take advantage of his family and continue to do so, continue to rake in the coins and make all of the money. However, Lorraine stepped forward and defended the work of her and her husband. She says that there were a total of 6 priests who were present in all of this, who witnessed all of this, and agreed that David was in fact possessed. She wasn't the only one. It wasn't just her and her husband. They were not crazy. They know what they saw and witnessed. She said that all of the supernatural things that they described were very much real and very true, and that is probably where his trauma is coming from. You should be traumatized by the ghost, girl, not by the work of us. The lawsuit is ultimately dismissed by the courts and nothing ever comes of it. They just told them to go home. So you see, ladies and gents, the movie was a lot like the actual case, except for the fact that Alan was definitely Australian, and it wasn't just him and Arne and Debbie there on that day. Like, there were plenty witnesses who all did say the same thing, but then again, one can question and say those were some kids, girl. They probably just went along with what they heard was said. Everybody's name in the movie remained the same except for the victim, which I can get. While we're on the subject of the victim, I kind of feel bad for them because they lost a loved one, and I think I would be upset if the person who did this to my loved one went to court and said the devil made me do it. I'd be like, girl, and the devil about to make me do something to you. Okay, I'm sure they probably feel a way about that and about the movie and just how everything played out and went down. A couple of things that I did not get why they left out or changed was the fact that there were 3 Glasgow children. However, they probably left it out because Carl wasn't down with it. Carl never believed that his brother was possessed, so they were like, you know what? Let's just leave him out. Also, the omission of the kids being present at the crime and like what really happened today. I wonder why that was a thing. But they probably didn't want to hire all these extra actors, girl. Now they got to pay all of these people when they can just make it be them two. You know what they changed that I did not like though? They made the main like demonic spirit a female witch. Why? No shade to the witches, but for what? And it's no shade, but I just feel like visually it could have been a lot better if they gave what David said the demon was really given. Like sharp teeth, all black eyes, tall, thin face, hooves. Imagine. Instead, we got sis from the Blair Witch Project, like sis with the little pulled back bun. Like, I'm not understanding. Instead, we got Sarah Sanderson. Hocus Pocus style. Like, I just don't understand why. I didn't like that. I would have rather seen what David said he saw. Honestly, I didn't really enjoy the movie. At first, I thought it was because I already knew what was going to happen. And like I said, I'm the type of person that I don't want you to tell me what's going to happen. I don't want to know. Like, that really ruins it for me. I thought that was the reason why I couldn't enjoy it, because I knew it was going to happen. And then I was just spending the rest of the time comparing the fact to the fiction. But I don't even think it's that. And I do feel like the movie did do the story justice, with the exception of them throwing that witch in there, but I don't know. It's not something I would watch again. And I love myself a little scary movie, child. I love the first Conjuring. I can't tell you what the second one was about to save my life right now, or who was in it besides Ed and Lorraine. But this one does not have me looking and waiting and holding my breath for the next one. I don't know why I contour my nose so much, girl. The thing is barely there to begin with. Then I just go decreasing her by like 50%. I want to know what you guys thought about it. After the fact, Arne had no more episodes like ever in life. They went on to live perfectly normal, average Joes, average me and you lives. Alright, you guys, that is it for this video and this look. I hope you guys enjoyed the story. Let me know your thoughts down below. Don't leave here without paying your tabs, girl, and liking my video. Subscribe if you have not. I told y'all about eavesdropping on me and my girls' conversations. Now, y'all can come in and join us. You don't have to lurk, okay? I hope you guys are having a fabulous week. As always, I appreciate you so much for spending your time with me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Peace. But instead of him allowing me to just put it there. Arne Johnson was born on January 21st of 1961, making him, that's an Aquarius. Yeah, okay. He will go into these little, what do I want to call them? Demonic spirits are attached to. He is like, you know what, at this point, come see me. Like, come, I was gonna say come inside me, girl, but this ain't that kind of video. YouTube might just go and flag me for that one, girl. How can I say it in a clean way? Take me over. That don't sound sensational enough. Possess me, okay? Do me. That still, do me is not it. Oh my God. By the owner's brother, which is 43. No, he's not 43, girl. He starts to drink. He's also encouraging, what's his name? Because the Warrens were so persistent and all over. Now, Arne gets a lawyer, and in the movie, here I go comparing again when I said I was going to wait to the end. This is what it is. He was dismissed with that defense static strategy. Now, granted, they are forbidden. Is that the word, though? What the fuck is the word? Not prohibit. I forbid you. Oh my God, my brain literally is not working. Forbid. Oh my God, I feel so dumb. The word I'm looking for is forbid, which is the brother, of course, of Debbie and Carl Glatzel, who is, of course, the brother of Debbie and Carl. No, Carl is Carl. Girl, how can one be one's brother? The girl just fell to her death. Share the video with a friend. What's a comment, subscribe, comment, like, share. Hope you guys are having a fabulous